ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Asenath Andrews.
About 33 years, 9 months, 6 weeks, 4 hours ago, this woman called me and said, "Hello, is this Miss Andrews?" And I'm the only one who lived in my house, so I couldn't figure out why she'd asked that. But I didn't really know her. Her name was Aretha Marshall, and I'd only met her once, and that was at a luncheon, and she had a flower in her hair, so I didn't really take her that seriously. But she said, "There's this little program, and we are wondering if you'd be interested in taking over the program." I said, "A little program?" See, well, it's a school for pregnant and parenting girls. I only knew one pregnant girl. I almost said her name when we were in high school. And she said, "Well, we heard that you were working on a PhD in Ed Psych, and that also we were." We had graduation here every year, so this is my auditorium. So she said, "Miss Andrews, we also know that you believe in equal rights for women, and we think this would be a good fit." And so I said, "Well, who are you?" And she gave me her name again, and she told me where the place was, and she said, "It's on Fort and West Grand Boulevard. Would you at least go over and take a look at it?" And I said, "Well, I'll go and take a look." Well, when I got there, I fell in love because it had such beautiful stained glass windows. I didn't meet a girl, didn't know a girl, didn't even get inside the place yet, but I used to be an art teacher. So I fall in love with my eyes first, and then my heart, and then my head. So I called her up and said, "Yep, I'm in." I didn't want to tell her, because I like stained glass windows. But I had to then find a staff, and what kind of staff do you find for pregnant and parenting girls? See, I know that I had to be careful because I knew that it was my job to make sure that my girls, I was already calling them mine, that they were taken care of and that nobody hurt them, that nobody did mean things to them, and that nobody put them down. Because I knew that one girl in high school and she caught the blues. So I got these amazing teachers. I had a social studies teacher who could also teach English, who could coach speech. I had a dance teacher who could also teach health and chemistry. I had an art teacher who could teach art design, clothing. She could sew. She did all kind of stuff. Had a math teacher. All he could do was play the drums, but he was a wonderful math teacher. So we had a staff. And then we had these kids, and so we got about 40 kids. That's the most that they'd ever had at the Salvation. This school was housed in the Salvation Army building. So we started teaching, and we had to change from what we were, because in order for Detroit Public Schools to give teachers to that school in the past, they had to be identified as physically or otherwise handicapped impaired. And that's how I got there, because the special ed supervisor said, "These kids aren't handicapped, they're pregnant." So we were there, we started to increase our enrollment, and we got more and more and more and more kids. We finally had about 125 girls, then 145 girls, and the Salvation Army made me sign a contract saying I would only take 125. Well, I'm a school teacher. You can't tell kids they can't come to school, so I had a plan. The plan was that I would be Gloria on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you could be Gloria on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it seemed like a really good thing to do, but at the time I didn't remember that the person I was trying to fool was this lady named Miss Mudge, who was a Salvationist, who was a really wonderful woman, but she was also a savant. If you told her you had a baby in 1947, she could tell you how much your baby weighed, what was your baby's APGAR score, and that's the lady I was trying to fool. Well, eventually she turned me in, and Salvation Army said, "You signed this contract. so you have to find another place to be. Well, you know, the Salvation Army is an amazing organization. They do wonderful things. They pick people up off the street, they feed people, and they put us out. But they gave us a little time. We went looking for a place. Teachers needed some planning time one afternoon, and I thought, well, I'm going to take the girls for a walk. Remember when your teachers used to take you out for a walk, how wonderful that was? Well, I had 125 pregnant girls walking around. And so we were walking and walking, and the freeway, that Jeffries Freeway, really throws me, and we got lost. And in the midst of our being lost, we found this building. Oh, love this building. Can you guess why? No stained glass windows, but it had pubic tiles all on the outside. Oh, loved, and then inside, I don't even want to tell you because somebody might go and steal it but anyway, there are these beautiful pubic tiles inside too that in the library, it's a beautiful building. But we just could look on the outside, and then we found a window that wasn't quite closed, and we had a girl who wasn't so pregnant, and so we put her through the window, and she opened the door, and when she opened the door, we came running into school. It's like, oh, Miss Andrews, there's an office. You can have an office. Oh, because at that point, all the babies that we kept were staying in my office, like 4 in a row, just lined up in one big crib. They said, oh, look here, there's a kindergarten. We could have a nursery. We could have, oh, Miss Andrews, there's a whole real school. There's a gym. We're running up and down the hall, screaming about all our new, delightful places to be in this new building. Well, who knew schools had alarms? I did. And the alarms were set off by sound, and of course the police heard us and came. So the kids, when the police came, the kids ran and hid, and I'm just standing there, and the police are like, you're breaking in. I said, we can't really break and enter, we just entered, because we didn't break anything. So the girls finally came out, and the girls said, oh, and the police noticed that everybody was pregnant with me. So that began our time at this new building. It took some time to get in the building, and we had to campaign, and I used to be an art teacher, so you know that campaign was big signs and all kinds of stuff. And so we finally got in the building, but they moved us in with the bad boys and the expelled kids, as if being pregnant was like robbing a liquor store. But it was all right. We had a garden at our old school. At the garden, when the pregnant girls, everybody had to be pregnant at that time to go to the school. And when the pregnant girls would try to work in the garden, they would just tip over. So we built these raised beds so that we could figure out how the pregnant girls could also grow food. Because I grew up on 8 Mile and everybody had a garden. And if you're going to be somebody's mother, you need to be able to feed your baby. So then when we moved to our new school, we also had a garden. We inherited this other school that Detroit Public Schools closed, and our garden went from being a garden to being a farm. It started off with the science teacher just had a couple of rabbits in his room, and then the rabbits had babies and they were chickens, and the chickens had babies, and they were goats, and the goats had babies, and they were horses. And then the kids went on a field trip one day and brought back a cow. So we still had to teach because it was important that we had this farm and we got to be known about around the country about the farm, but we also were serious academics. And every single girl who graduated from Catherine Ferguson Academy was accepted to a 2 or 4 year college before she graduated. We traveled all over the country. We did summer school on a college campus. I'm first generation college. My 98-year-old mom is back there, never missed a graduation. But because of that, I knew that girls needed to be on campus because you only have to be on campus for a few minutes before you meet somebody who's dumb as a brick. So you don't have to be oh so smart to go to college. You just have to be determined. So we went all over the country. We have daycare centers in D.C. with a group of women who opened a daycare center. We built houses with Habitat for Humanity in California. We did all kinds of things all over the country because my parents traveled with us. You need to travel because you learn stuff outside of school. Then we were invited to be a part of a video conference doing some workshops with some students in Ethiopia who were doing urban gardens. And when I left that video conference, I thought I've been so small in my dreams for my girls. I knew I wanted them to have a big world, but I was only giving them a national view. I didn't give them a world view. So our next trip was we went to South Africa. We went to Johannesburg, because now my girls were international consultants. And we went to a conference for youth entrepreneurship, and we taught urban gardening, and they were just magnificent. Then, about a year after that, Detroit Public Schools decided we were too expensive, and we closed. But we were only closed for about 8 minutes. And then we were rescued by a charter organization. Blair Evans and the BKB schools reopened us in 8 minutes. But we never really recovered from that loss, because everybody heard, Catherine Ferguson is closed, Catherine Ferguson is closed. And so 3 years after that, we closed again. We planted seeds all over that playground. We grew every kind of vegetable that'll grow in Michigan. We even grew sweet potatoes. But what we planted that was more important was that we planted the seed of being in our girls. We planted confidence. We planted strength. We built a barn. And if you can build a barn, you're not gonna take a lick. You know, it's like, I'm my own woman. I can do what I wanna do. So, the last trip my girls took, that one without me, was they went to Ethiopia and built solar suitcases and went out into the bush and helped the midwives in Ethiopia deliver babies. That was our last trip. Do I miss my school? I miss my school every day. But I have girls everywhere. I have artists and musicians and business owners and doctors and nurses and lawyers. One politician, not crooked. I have all kinds of girls everywhere. So when I go out, my sisters hate going because everywhere I go, I see kids. I have a kid here. Don't raise your hand, I'll see you after. But remember that every girl who went to Catherine Ferguson Academy is obligated to leave a trail, because Catherine Ferguson was a place. Thank you.
Asenath Andrews. 100% of the 1,000 girls that attended that school went on to college, were accepted. 100%.